As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here."
When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it.
Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest."
The word Hosanna means save now. The crowd was giving Jesus an impromptu version of a Roman parade, normally used to welcome a triumphant conqueror. They were applauding and praising him in hopes that he would oust the Roman oppressors. Unbeknown to them, they were fulfilling a 500-year-old prophecy. The prophet Zechariah had written that Jesus would receive just such a welcome.
"Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and having salvation, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey."
This is the only time that Jesus ever allowed such a momentous reception on his behalf. He had a reason. Jesus was forcing the hands of those who were out to kill him. He wanted them to act now, without delay.
Now the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread were only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some sly way to arrest Jesus and kill him. But not during the feast, they said, or the people may riot.
From the perspective of the shouting crowd, it was time for Jesus to announce that he was the true king of Israel. They were ready to follow him. But for the religious leaders who were plotting his death, it was an awkward situation. If Jesus needed to be put off the stage, now was the time. But they were afraid of the public reaction. Jesus was obviously very popular. And the city was crammed with people for the Passover, many of whom were expectantly watching Jesus in hope that he would evict the Romans, that he would get rid of the Romans. But as the hours passed, with no official proclamation of his kingship, Jesus' hero status was fast fading. Now, as for Jesus, he instructed 2 of his disciples to arrange a room for the Passover.
When evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12.
While they were reclining at the table eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me."
They were saddened, and one by one they said to him, "Surely not I."
"It is one of the 12, he replied, "one who dips bread into the bowl with me."
When Jesus chose his 12 disciples 3 years earlier, he knew that one was a traitor. 1,000 years before this time, King David, in speaking of this betrayal, had written from the Savior's perspective.
"Even my close friend, whom I trusted, he who shared my bread, has lifted up his heel against me."
The traitor was Judas Iscariot. Though he was treasurer for the disciples, he was also a thief. Apparently, he oiled his ambitions and lined his pockets without the disciples being any the wiser. But Jesus knew, and apparently Satan knew it too. Satan had been watching for a weak link in Jesus' armor and for a time and a place to crush the promised Savior forever. Now Satan saw his opportunity. Judas was willing. As the Passover bread was being served, Satan made his move.
As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him.
"What you are about to do quickly," Jesus told him. But no one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him.
And Judas went to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guard and discussed with them how he might betray Jesus. They were delighted and agreed to give him money.
The scenario with Judas had happened in the middle of the Passover meal. While the traitor went about his diabolical mission, Jesus continued with the supper. It has great significance.
While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, Take it. This is my body.
Obviously, they weren't eating Jesus' flesh. And yet, Jesus was saying that the broken Passover loaf represented his body. The disciples must have been perplexed. Did this have to do with Jesus' earlier reference to himself as the bread of life?
Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, and they all drank from it.
This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many, he said to them.
Again, the symbolism was similar. Jesus' blood would soon be poured out for many people. We'll see the significance of this later on.
When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
It would have been only a short, possibly a 20-minute walk for Jesus and his disciples to reach his destination. Jesus led his followers to a garden called the Garden of Gethsemane, located at the foot of the Mount of Olives.
You are looking at the traditional site of that garden, and it may well be the actual one. At least one of these olive trees dates back to the time of Christ.
Whatever the case, it certainly is close to where Jesus brought his disciples. From the garden, you can see the Golden Gate, now sealed up and closed. But during the time of Jesus, right behind that gate would have been the temple.
Our next lesson begins in the Garden of Gethsemane.